Welcome back, WNST and Baltimore Positive. We are positively back in the Ville, the 21228, where the chicken and waffles were great and still are. Don Moeller is here. It is Baltimore Positive. I'm back from the Super Bowl we did not win. The president is still the president. And
Tammy doesn't even wait anymore for you to order. As soon as you walk in, Tammy simply brings the chicken and waffles over. You are branded.
They know how I'm rolling here today, you know. Got the councilman out today.
Councilman, did you get any? I didn't get any chicken and waffles.
I did not get offered. I got offered water, which I'm not even allowed to put on camera.
Well, we're on a schedule, man. You know, I mean, we got council. Bill Henry here. We got things we have to do. So I'm going to continue to eat my waffle. You guys, I want to say old mates, but you guys know each other.
We do.
You do that. You keep eating the chicken and waffles.
Everyone who watches Baltimore Positive knows the show improves when I shut off.
Don and I are going to stay here. We're going to talk to each other, try desperately to live
so
another couple of years.
So when people hit me and they say, what are you doing today? I'll say, I'm at State Fair in Catonsville eating chicken and waffles and learning about government.
We are with Councilman Bill Henry. First of all, we always have to thank our sponsors at Jennings and State Fair and Fadley's, our newest sponsor at Center Maryland, one of the really great news aggregate sites in the state of Maryland. If you haven't checked out Center Maryland, do so. And Nestor and I feel committed to always, and I'm sure you know this organization well, Councilman, we have fallen in love with Thread and Sarah Heminger and the work that they're doing. And I say every show, if you're looking to make a difference and you really are feeling Baltimore positive, you want to change lives, or as Sarah says, you want to be transformational, hop on thread.org and see the work they're doing and figure out how you can help.
100%.
So welcome to Baltimore Positive.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So you're looking for a job change.
I am. I actually told my constituents, I've been the councilman for the 4th District, representing North and Northeast Baltimore City for over 12 years now. I'm in my 3rd term, and I told my constituents back when I was running for re-election in 2016 that if they sent me back, that this would be my last term as the 4th District council person. I had introduced a charter amendment to create term limits for local offices, and while it did not pass, I still thought it was a good idea, and I still believed in it, and so I was committed to stepping down after 3 terms and giving somebody else a chance to come in and offer new ideas and different energy.
That's interesting. That's an interesting concept, right? Term limits. We don't hear enough about that as the president is tweeting out that he's going to be president for the next 40 years, right?
I know you're deep side. Okay, it takes Nestor. Nestor can't sleep at night.
I'm going to go back to the chicken.
I was going to say
my mic was muted, but everybody heard me. So that's fine.
You're not going to let me even have the chicken and waffles yet. You're going to make me talk about the president.
You're going to get that. Yeah, it's very, very difficult. We will get into some of that, but let's jump back to your decision that you just referenced when you told your constituents that this was going to be it. And I've seen other handful, not many, electeds make that decision. Was that decision with an eye on being the controller, or was that decision, hey, whatever happens, this is it for me?
It was not with an eye on a specific thing that I wanted to do. It was more of a philosophical commitment that I feel the Baltimore City Council is a great place to learn even more about the inner workings of Baltimore City government. And it's a good training ground for the citywide offices. And I just feel philosophically, if you've served 3 terms on the council, that at that point you should either be prepared to move up and contribute in another way, or you should consider going back to contributing however else you
graduating, kind of, sort of.
I did community development for 8 years before I was on the council, and when I made that commitment in 2016, I was perfectly comfortable with the concept of if I get through this term and I don't see a way for me to help Baltimore more as a citywide official, I'm happy to go back to community development.
This whole thing started in the aftermath of Freddie Gray. Just a little introduction on my part. Most people know Nasty Nestor and 30 years of doing sports radio. You know, I looked out the window in 15 and saw the fires, and I looked at my wife and said things are never going to be the same. My wife had just battled cancer once at Hopkins, would go back and battle again 6 months later. And I said to her, the city's never going to be the same. And then I went back on the radio the next day, and I talked about the Orioles and the Caps and the Terps and the Ravens and lacrosse and whatever else was I'm supposed to talk about. What people tell me I should stick to talking about. And, my condo's been on the market for almost 2 years now, and I can't give it away. I can't get anybody to walk through it. And I'm as invested in Baltimore as anyone. And Don was running the county a year and a half ago. Yep. And I reached to him, and I'm disgusted. I mean, disgusted doesn't begin to describe my feelings toward what has happened with the executive branch of the government. And I'm looking at my life at 51 and my audience of 100,000 people that follow Ravens. They all thought we were going to the Super Bowl. Don's,
you were ready for a parade, man.
Don's made a lifetime of friends. Don was my high school guidance counselor in 1982. And so this whole thing really started of my love of Baltimore and my residency and my citizenship of Baltimore. Someone that sits there, and I know Bill Cole, I know a whole bunch of people. Tell me what, as a citizen witnessing it, you said you've seen it from the inside. What should I know about improving it? That if you were mayor, if you were God, if you could fix things, what should I know as a citizen? Because that's why I'm doing this, is to learn about, how can we make this place better?
Okay, so not to put too fine a point on it, but you've just encapsulated a lot of the reasons why I decided to run for Comptroller.
Awesome.
The Comptroller is really supposed to be the chief accountability officer for city government. It's not like the state comptroller where there's a lot of focus on the nuts and bolts of tax collection. The Comptroller for Baltimore City is intended to be a financial watchdog. They're the role in city government that's supposed to be keeping an eye on the mayor, making sure the mayor is doing good deals for the entire city, making certain that the agencies are doing their best work, that they're being effective and efficient. And that is one of the things that as a council person, you see a lot of examples of the agencies not doing the best work that they can be doing. But because of the incredibly strong mayor system of government that we have in Baltimore City, there's very little opportunity for the council to directly alter operations. But the comptroller is in a position to, for lack of a better term, to publicly shame the mayor and the agencies without the fear of reprisal that the council has to worry about. When council people have two different pressures. On the one hand, they're trying to make Baltimore as good as Baltimore can be, trying to come up with new good policies or get rid of bad old policies. But at the same time, they also all work for the 43,000 people in their district, and they're trying to help their constituents with problems.
When there's a pothole, we want to get them all fixed. But you're fighting for the pothole in Northeast Baltimore, while my Eric Costello is fighting for me down in Federal Hill.
And the problem is you have to have the active cooperation of the agencies and at least the passive benevolence of the mayor in order to get that constituent work done. Because if very frankly, you piss off the mayor too much, mayor might make a phone call to an agency and say, don't help this guy with these things.
You've been there.
Yeah, it's like you know how that works. And
I find that unacceptable.
I
find that unacceptable.
I share your outrage, which is one of the reasons why, as a council person, I have put in a number of charter amendments over the years, including several that are in a committee right now, that would try to even that power dynamic between the mayor and the council so that agencies would have to be more responsive to the council regardless of how the
Don's chomping at the bit here, right?
We always, first of all, we're sitting with 4th District Councilman Bill Henry.
I'm enjoying the hell out of this conversation.
He and Nestor are kindred spirits.
I'm trying to talk to you, but I'm trying to eat the waffles.
The councilman's looking
priorities, man, priorities.
Looking for a job change.
We'll get to the money in a minute.
Coming up on April the 28th, there will be a primary.
Oh, before that, early voting starts April 16th.
There you go, April 16th with the early vote. But we're talking with Councilman Bill Henry, who wants to be the comptroller, and he's really giving us what I call the four dummies look behind the curtain at what the comptroller does. I want to go back because Nestor looked at me and he said I was chomping at the bit. There is always this yin and yang between the executive branch and the legislative branch. And there's no doubt that in the state of Maryland, from the governor to its local executives, it is executive branch heavy, particularly in terms of budget allocation. And as an executive, I was very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
As a legislator and my good friends on the council, you all somewhat less so. Is that fair to say?
That's probably pretty accurate. Yeah, it's a generalization. All generalizations are inherently iffy, but
He never ran for office. That's pretty good.
Well,
that's pretty good.
Well,
but he did the hard work
Did you
behind
write
the
that
scenes
for
the whole
Kevin?
time.
No. I actually believe that. It's interesting, and I chuckled is not the right word. These are not live. This will be posted in about a week. We don't typically timestamp them, but it's hard not to timestamp this morning. And I want to give you a story, and I want to give you an example, and I want you to respond. And I said, we never go in a straight line, those of you who are loyal listeners at Baltimore Positive. This morning on the front page, there is a story about the current comptroller being found in violation of city ethics laws by the Inspector General for having sold 15 lots at $1 each to a church for whom she served on its board. Now, I want you to talk about that, but I want you to talk about that through this lens. And this is what upsets me, and I think it's what gets Nestor going. I can tell you that my wife was sitting there, we were having our breakfast, she sees that story, and she turns to me and she goes, this is why you always wondered why I was lukewarm about you spending all that time in politics. And this is a rational, level-headed woman who says, here's just another example of people not doing the right thing. Talk about that story in the Sun, that issue. You want that job, and I need you to talk a little bit about what happened.
So for what it's worth, probably the most inherently dangerous part of that situation is probably going to get missed by a lot of people who read the story. Because a lot of people who read that story, they're going to focus on the fact that she voted for the sale,
the current comptroller.
They're going to focus on the fact that she voted in favor of this, even though she's on the board at the church and she should have recused herself. And she has explained and admitted that it was a mistake, that she had intended to recuse herself, but the staff work behind the scenes didn't work the way it was supposed to. And that, for me, is the part of this that we really need to address, is that the current comptroller was elected in 1995. And that was a long time ago. That was literally the last millennium. And that office still largely runs the way she and her deputy comptroller were shown how to run it by her predecessor 25 years ago. And that office has not taken advantage of a lot of the updates and available improvements in office processes in IT that the rest of society has taken advantage of. For example, the reason that things didn't happen, as according to the report, is there was one person on her staff who has a typed list of organizations that she's supposed to recuse herself from votes on, and they had it in their desk and they weren't there. Like, they were out of the office. Was
that list available? Because we just had, and I want you to go back, and I apologize, I'm breaking my own rule, I'm interrupting you. We're bad at that, and promise our listeners we're working to get better. But we had Governor Martin O'Malley on recently, and he talked, one of his themes was the importance of open government, open data, transparency. So this list is in the drawer. Is that list regularly available on a website, on an app, where people can say, I want to monitor this for good government? Does that happen?
So after the OIG report came out, the mayor called for exactly that. And For what it's worth, I have been calling for more openness and transparency in the Comptroller's Office literally for over a year at this point. I guess if I could tell a little story.
Please.
In 1995, when the Comptroller was first elected, we also elected a new council president that year, a guy named Lawrence Bell. You may remember Lawrence. Lawrence made me his chief of staff. One of the first things we did in 1996, until then, the city council's legislative tracking system was literally a big binder in Lorraine Lazinski's office. She was the executive secretary of the council. If you wanted to look up a bill or a resolution, you had to walk over to Lorraine's office and flip through the binder where she had handwritten on each line of each page the bill number, the title, the sponsor, the date of introduction, and the committee that had been assigned to. And you had to flip through the pages
Well, that was
until
the world in 1977, right?
Well, that was still the world in City Hall in 1995.
Fair enough.
But in 1996, we worked with Council Services. We went out, we brought in a consulting firm to build us a searchable database, trained Lorraine on how to do data entry, got her a scanner so she could scan documents in, make them part of the virtual record.
And evolved.
Turned it into Legistar, and by, I think, it was up and running by the end of Lawrence's term where all of government could access it, and then the next council president put it onto the internet in 2006. So for 14 years now, if you want to look up any bill or resolution that the city council has been working on, you can just go to baltimorecitycouncil.com, click search legislation, type in some keywords,
Well, it was
and boom.
O'Malley's era too, right?
Yeah, yes, O'Malley was the mayor, and this is now what people expect. Like, people expect that if there's information that government has, it should be available to them. That's what freedom of information is all about. You and with the modern information age, you should be able to, from any computer, pull that information up. Meanwhile, for the last 14 years, even though another branch of government has done this, downstairs in the Comptroller's office, their idea of making the Board of Estimates, which is all of the financial information of the city. We do $500 million of contracting and procurement every year, a week at a time, in our Board of Estimates meetings. All of that information, their idea of transparency is after they have typed the agenda each week, they scan it in and put a PDF of that up on their website, which means if you're
That
looking...
wouldn't have been good in 1999.
If you're trying to learn about how your city is spending your money,
Which you think taxpayers
Which
might
you
want
would
You
to
think
say
do.
people-
you mean me.
Right.
I mean you.
'Cause I am a Baltimore City
You
resident.
are a Baltimore City resident. I'm a Baltimore City resident. I pay taxes. Some of that money goes to pay my salary. Some of it goes to pay other city employees' salaries. And a lot of that goes to pay for services that we're supposed to be receiving. And if those services are not efficiently contracted out or efficiently managed internally, that's not good for us.
I think it's a great spot. Take a break.
Yes, do
we
it.
know Councilman's going to stay with us 2 more quick episodes. He's on his way to an important press conference. We'll allow you actually
Chicken and
to
waffles are
talk
gone,
about
just officially. And
Where are we today, Nestor?
We're at State Fair. Those were chicken and waffles. You can get the shrimp and grits. You can come. You're not staying long enough to get breakfast, unfortunately.
I'm not.
This thing was set up to be breezy and breakfasty, but then I start eating and I stop talking. We're Baltimore Positive. Don is here with Councilman Bill Henry. Back for more from Catonsville. It's Baltimore Positive and WNST.net.